We'll open Monday, January 10th council meeting and roll call. All councilors are present. Agenda review. I do not believe we need to add anything this time. We'll move on to approval of minutes of May 9th, 2019 special council meeting and May 13th, 2019 special and regular council meetings. Take a motion.
Move approval of both.
Second.
Any corrections, changes, modifications, comments? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion. I'll take a vote. All those in favor of approval of the minutes? Passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearings. Public hearing A, to consider a vitulers license for American Legion, Bell's IGA, Burger King, Dysart's Travel Stop, Ledbetter's The Store Ampersand, Thai Kitchen, and Wendy's. Dave.
Hi, good evening, folks. I'm Dave Milan, the Director of Community Development, and I'm here to tell you that all of the fees have been paid and inspections have been done, and staff recommends approval of the victuals licenses.
Except for one that's conditioned.
That's yes, correct. The one that's conditioned is approved conditional.
Okay. Sure.
There are two that are conditioned.
I only have one.
I don't know if it sounds broken to me. Is it? Probably not. All right. So one is Burger King, which is conditioned upon payment of their personal property taxes, and the other is Bell's IGA, which is conditioned upon right title or interest.
Makes good sense. Anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of these licenses or specials of the week? Anything like that? Hearing none, I will close public hearing A.
Thank you.
Yep. Move on to public hearing B to discuss the sewer use fee increase for FY 2020. Sophie.
So this feels a little bit backwards to me, but it's the way we've always done it. So we're going to continue to do it the way we've always done it. Later on in the evening, you will hear a presentation about the WPCF budget. Regardless, what you will learn in that presentation is that our current revenues do not support the needs identified in the budget. So we are proposing a 40-cent per cubic foot fee increase starting on January 1st. As 40 cents, right? 40 cents per 100 cubic feet. I feel like I'm eating the microphone. That would bring our existing sewer use fee $4.95 to $5.35 per 100 cubic feet. It would provide us an additional $63,859 in FY20 for revenue, and it would fully fund the FY20 operating budget. Our budgets are up primarily two driving factors in the WPCF operating budget. The first is market increase for labor. We have people who are getting licenses, they're new, and they are ascending through the licensure that they're required. And as you do that, you have to pay more. They're highly skilled positions. And as Joe reminds me frequently, we've got amazing operators, and it would be a shame to lose them because we fall so far behind market that we're not competitive anymore. And then the other large driving force is a projected increase in electricity costs. So what we are suggesting with that 40 cents per 100 cubic feet increase would impact the minimum fee. So everybody pays for 1,200 cubic feet per quarter, even if they don't use 1,200 cubic feet. So the minimum fee would increase $4.80 per quarter. The average use for a family of 4 increases $8.80 per quarter. So in FY20, which would be 6 months of increase, our customers who pay the minimum would see a $9.60 increase, and average users would see a $17.60 increase. The University of Maine would see about a $27,000 increase, and I met with them earlier today, and they have it in their budget. It's not that much different than when we thought we were going to do a 25-cent increase on July 1. So when we look at that, if you see, we went for a very long time from when I arrived in 2011 up through 2016 at $4.54 per 100 cubic feet. And we had identified the need to increase. We began taking those steps. We're hoping that this step should do the trick for at least a while, and perhaps be able to let us fall back into very small rate increases in the future to keep up. When we talked about this at committee, or at workshop, we used 100 cubic feet as kind of an annual use. It's 2,000 cubic feet a quarter. That would cost us, for a customer in Orono, $428 a year. The average of the region and our comparables is closer to $640 a year for that same usage. So we continue to be the lowest in the region and among our comparables, and the average, we're much lower than the average. So that is what I have on sewer use fee increase. I don't know if Joe wants to add anything. You're good? Okay.
Sophie, do you want to go into a little bit of why the electricity is going up, or do you want to wait till the budget to?
We might as well do that now.
Okay.
Anything to get Joe up on his feet.
Joe Madigan, Superintendent of the Orono Water Pollution Control Facility. The reason for the electrical going up, we're buying at a pretty good price, and we're keeping it there, but the loadings that we're finding at the treatment plant are forcing us to use more of the aeration basin. We're turning on the second aeration basin through the colder part of the winter. We had a little trouble treating our loads, and so we kicked that other basin on and smoothed right out. We're producing a good product like I really want to do. So that's costing us more. There's a blower, there's a couple of pumps. So that's what's driving that. Yes?
So the load is greater, or the temperatures being colder mean that you need more electricity with the same load?
So the load is greater because the university's in then, but you're right, the temperature, the biological activity drops down as the temperature drops down. So we need more mass to treat the waste stream.
And
so we need more electricity to keep that aerated, and as well as pump it around.
And did the load increase between last year and this year, or it increased? Because I don't think we had any new apartments coming on this year.
Well, it was because this year was exceptionally cold.
Right.
And-
Okay. So it
and
wasn't
we
this year. It
had,
wasn't load. This year it was.
Well, we're still getting a higher influent biological oxygen demand, I don't know if we've got more students, or for sure what is causing it, but it's showing up on our influence studies that we're getting more poundage coming in than we did in years past.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
No, thanks, Joe. All right, I will ask if any public wishes to comment or ask any questions on this increase. Yes. We just talked about the sewer use increase, fee increase, 40 cents starting January 2020. All right, hearing none, I will close public hearing B and move on to public hearing C to discuss the 2019-2020 municipal capital and WPCF budgets. Sophie.
Favorite presentation of the whole year. So I always like to start my presentation by reminding folks that when we think about budgets, most people immediately go to tax rate, and the property tax fund services that are actually provided by 3 different entities.
That helps a little bit. All right. So local property taxes fund services provided by 3 different entities: the town, the regional school unit, and the county. So Penobscot County and the RSU 26 and the town are separate legal entities with no internal oversight or control of one another. We work in concert with one another to provide a wide array of local services to the public. So each of the 3 entities have an independent budget process. All 3 of them are open to the public. There's an intense review of budget lines. There's a discussion about needs and impact of costs to the taxpayers, and there is a public adoption process. So each one of those components people can have input into. So in years past, this has been like 4 slides. I decided to shrink it up, put it on one side just to demonstrate the wide array of municipal services that the town is responsible for providing. Everything from police and fire, public transit, planning, code, economic development, library services, rec programming, the pools, our parks and open spaces, all of the maintenance and capital efforts around our public infrastructure, solid waste removal, stormwater, elections, which we have one tomorrow, and also being stewards. The last thing on the list is the fact that of the 3 entities, the town is responsible for the tax assessment, the billing, and the collection of all of the property tax money, which we then send to RSU 26 in Penobscot County. So Penobscot County finalized their budget in December of 2018. It's going to cost the town of Orono in FY20 $682,020, which is an increase of $43,577 or 7%. RSU 26 has gone through public budget workshops in the spring. They held a district-wide meeting in May, and their budget goes to referendum tomorrow. However, based on the approval at the district meeting, we are carrying right now the $6,842,941 that they are putting out to the voters. That is no change from the FY19 assessment. So the town of Orono had 6 budget workshops throughout the month of May, a little bit of June. And our budget is scheduled for adoption 2 weeks from tonight on June 24th. The way the budget process works in Orono is that staff spends a great deal of time preparing a budget. It then goes out to councils, and council spent its month reviewing the budget, asking lots of questions and making changes where they felt appropriate. Tonight is about the public having the opportunity to weigh in on the budget. Council will take what it hears from the public. It will meet again next Monday night at 6 o'clock and decide whether it wants to move forward the existing budget or make changes. And then the budget will be adopted in some form or fashion on the 24th at a special council meeting. So the budget that we're presenting tonight has a municipal assessment. So that is expenses minus revenues of $4,777, $4,777,783, and represents no increase over FY19. It is the same amount that we committed for taxes last year for town services. So when we think about the town budget components, there are actually 3 different budgets that we talk about. There's an operating budget for town services, capital improvement budget for town services, and also we have an enterprise fund, which is our wastewater pollution control facility, which runs like a business. So it has a separate budget, and we will talk about that as we go forward. So when we think about our expenditures, you'll see that we have about $7.8 million for operations. That is to fund all of those services that you saw on the slide. We have $1.2 million for debt service. So these are debt obligations that council is required to fund. We have $886,000 for economic development. That is funded out of the tax increment financing district. So you will see a corresponding use of restricted funds that is also $886,309. We have $1.2 million allocated this year for capital expenditures and reserve savings into reserves for coming expenses. And we are projecting a minimum overlay of $72,417, which brings us to that $11.2 million expense budget. There is a decrease over last year of 0.25% or $28,342. So as you can see, we also have definitely have some pots of revenue that we use. General fund revenue are new dollars coming in that run the gamut from fees for services to payment. We have pilots, payment in lieu of taxes. We are estimating $2.7 million this year. Revenue sharing, we are using the state budget as proposed. It's the governor's budget. That number is $1.2 million for revenue sharing. Homestead and Betty reimbursement. Betty is business equipment tax exemption, $356,846. Capital revenues of $225, which simply mean anything that we were using to fund capital expense that are not general fund tax dollars turn into capital revenues. We're planning a $400,000 draw from the unassigned fund balance. We have funds set aside from the sale of 3 Godfrey Drive that are there to pay the annual debt payment to build that building many, many years ago. That is the $488,188. And then the restricted TIF funds, which equal the economic development budget. So the $6.4 million is a decrease in revenue of $28,373 or 0.44% from last year. So we get to the $4,777,783 by looking now at the net cost to the taxpayers of each of for operations and for capital, and then also for the projected overlay. And what you will notice from year to year is that while our capital expense budget is down, so are the capital revenues. So where we are actually funding more capital on the tax dollar as opposed to had we been able to maintain a level of grants and other capital revenues coming in. So this is no change from last year, same exact figure. So when we think about the budget, it's not just about money, it's also about work plan. So this budget maintains the same level of services. We're not looking to add any expansive new services. We are reducing the level of investment total onto into the capital budget. We're moving 20 hours a week that was in community development into the fire station to support their efforts. And 6 hours a week we are shifting from the library to webmaster design, social media presence in economic development. And we're increasing part-time library hours 3 hours a week. For people who have gotten in depth in the budget, they will notice a significant decrease in the Parks and Rec budget. That is actually a shift. The Parks and Rec director is doing work that is eligible for payment under the tax increment financing district funds. So we are shifting a portion of his salary to be paid from there. Exact same scope of services that we funded this year, just paid for a little bit differently. We ready to go on to capital? So this shows that we make up our $1.2 million capital budget with $358,000 for capital equipment, $660,000 for capital infrastructure, $32,000 for capital facilities, and $147,000 for reserve for future capital projects. This is a decrease of $319,500 or approximately 21% from last year. So again, the net shows what's hitting the actual general fund taxes. This is the expenses minus revenues. So $138,000 of tax money is being used for capital equipment. All $660,000 of infrastructure is coming from general fund taxes. $27,000 of facilities funds, and all $147,000 of reserve. So you would ask, what is all of that paying for? Well, we're buying an ambulance chassis and we're going to remount the current ambulance box. So we'll still have 2 ambulances, just one with a new chassis. We are going to buy a wheeler, truck chassis, dump body, and plow for Public Works, and 1 police cruiser. This was actually on the schedule a year for 2 cruisers. We're going to try 1 this year and see how it works. The chief is giving me the eye right now. So capital infrastructure, we have a major project planned for North Main Avenue. We're actually starting it this summer out of FY19 funds. We will do the second phase coming up in the end of FY20. Main Street sidewalks, we are expecting to do a very large sidewalk project on Main Street. We're going to start this year with some funds for the design. Orono Landing Road, some overlay and ditching out there. Old Kelly Road, overlay and ditching. Riverdale Drive, overlay. Margin Street, we're going to start a drainage study for Margin Street. Westwood, we had programmed in the budget drainage and road rehab. We are not going to do the road until we know if the school is going to do construction, because we don't want to put a brand new road down and then have it beat up with construction vehicles. So that's been pushed out in the capital plan. Chapel Road and College Heights have designed for drainage and overlay. And we're going to continue working on the College Ave sidewalk paving project, which is folks who walk along College Ave would recognize. Rob does about $25,000 a year and has for the last several years. Our facilities projects, we are planning to do town office and public safety building, communication cable restructuring, and update the radiant heat control in the public safety building so that our police department is higher than 53 degrees and our fire department is lower than 70 degrees, or lower than 80 degrees, yeah, there. So I wanted to just give people a sense of what capital reserve funding we have. We put money aside every year for capital equipment, for police technology reserve, as the police department becomes more active users of technology, whether it be computers or tablets or cameras in the cruisers and body cameras. We are finding that you have to replace everything at once. So we put a little bit of money aside every year. Public Works and Library both have individual maintenance reserves for those buildings. They're two of the newer buildings that were constructed, so they have their own maintenance reserve. The construction, demolition, debris landfill is, we've just recently opened up a cell. However, we've still put $15,000 a year into a reserve in hopes that when it's time to close this cell, we will have money available to be able to do that. IT and audio visual reserve is to help keep council streaming and computers systems going. And there is a new reserve this year, which is the Public Safety Radio Upgrade Reserve. We currently are analog and we need to go to digital. We know that the county is making that move and we're beginning to put money aside. So when that happens, we will not get left behind. Ready to move on? So when we look at a tax rate calculation, you're taking the net municipal budget, which would be our expenses minus our revenues, the county assessment, and the school assessment, and you're dividing it by the assessed taxable valuation. That's how you get the tax rate. So if you leave here today, the thing to remember is tax rates have to do with revenues, expenditures, and valuation. The council and I can talk at length tonight about revenues and expenditures. Valuation is something that will not be firmed up until the beginning of August. So we're making some general predictions or projections moving forward about valuation. So as I go in to talk about how we think this budget is going to impact taxpayers, it's really important for people to understand we're only working with one side of the equation, and these numbers may go up a little bit or down a little bit. We hope not. In 8 years, I haven't had them go up, but I always give myself some room. So this year, council spent quite a bit of time talking about some legislative unknowns. I've just gone through the budget as proposed. However, in Augusta, they continue to work on revenue sharing. The governor, so state law says that we should be funded at 5% of sales and income tax should come to the municipalities. And for Orono, that would mean revenue sharing to the tune of almost $2.5 million, which is much greater than what we currently get or are predicted to get. Governor Mills proposed a budget this year that would fund us at 2.5%, which is almost $1.3 million, which is what the budget that we just went through is based on. However, the Appropriations Committee has reported out unanimously an amendment to Governor Mills' budget that would increase revenue sharing to 3%, which is $239,315 more than what our budget is built on. So we built it on the smallest amount that we would think we would get, and then we had significant discussion about what would we do if the 3% actually came through for us. And I'll talk about that in a slide or two down the way. The other thing that is a moving target down in Augusta these days is homestead. The Appropriations Committee also voted out an increase to the homestead exemption. So right now, homestead eligible properties get to take $20,000 of their value and it turns to untaxable value. And the town gets reimbursement for that. The problem with the homestead exemption is that the legislature has never funded, well, they did at the very beginning, they funded it at 100%, but they don't now. So it's actually a tax shift because one group of residents get a reduction of their taxable value. So it takes taxable value off the rolls. But if it's not fully funded, everybody else, the mill rate goes up to pay for that. So the mill rate goes up to pay for an exemption that some people have and some people don't. So I was very pleased to see that the Appropriations Committee at this point is planning to fund homestead at 100%, which would at 27 mills equate to $135 reduction in homestead eligible tax bills. But it has not been voted out of the legislature yet, and I was told not to count on it before it actually passes through. So council, like I said, council had significant conversation about revenue sharing, and in the end, the consensus was that there's a need to prioritize tax relief. They also indicated that there is a desire to discuss an incremental approach to reducing the town's annual draw on its undesignated fund balance, which is the way we've kind of made up for these losses in state revenue. Once the budget is set and we know what the funding levels are, council will discuss the specific allocation of any additional revenue. I will tell you, they've made it clear to me that I shouldn't come back with a list of anything else I want to spend. So I think they are really committed to trying to do the best that they can for taxpayers. So as I said, our FY20 assessed valuation, that calculation is still in progress. It will be really important for the legislature if they're going to give the homestead exemption to fund it, fully fund it, which again is what the proposal is at this point. If they don't fully fund it, like I said, some people will get a tax break, but the mill rate will go up to pay for it. So when we look at the tax rate summary, it's important to look at what the net change of tax commitment is. How many dollars more do we need this year than we needed last year. And that is exactly the increase in the county tax. So $45,577 or 0.37%. So that creates a projected tax rate of $27.10 per $1,000 of taxable valuation. We have some people that really like to break out the mills for each of the three cost centers in the budget. So if you look at that, the municipal services are now would be at $10.53 per $1,000 of value. The school be at $15.07 per $1,000 of value. And the county tax is where the 10-cent jump is. It was $1.40 last year. It would be $1.50 this year. Just showing what I just said in a different way. There's no increase for municipal services, for the school assessment, and 10 cents for the county. So people really like to look at what the impact is on their out of their pocket. So if we used an average home value of $175,000 in Orono, if that is a homestead eligible property, last year it had a tax bill of about $4,185. This year there'd be a $15 increase to $4,200. It's actually $15.50 and 50 cents. That same home, if it was not homestead eligible, the tax bill last year was $4,725. It would go up $18 this year. And I'm just showing the breakout of where those dollars would go. So we had a counselor who wanted to see more than just the average home. So I pulled a home that would be on the lower end of a single family home in Orono. So their projected tax this in FY20 would be $3,200, which would be a $12 increase. That is assuming no further increase in revenue sharing and no change with the homestead exemption. And the 175, that number is different than what you saw before because that's taxable valuation. So we didn't subtract out the homestead on that one. So $375,000 would be a fairly average, like downtown business without personal property, just real estate tax. 1.5 million would be like a business out at the tech park. 10 million would be one of the smaller large residential complexes, and 30 million would be our highest taxpayer, which is a large residential complex. So that's just to kind of show you that as the tax bill goes up, so does the increase. Okay. Budget breakdown. Every year people like to see my pie. It hasn't really changed. 39%. So 39 cents of every dollar that the town collects actually stays with us to provide municipal services. 56 cents goes to the school and 5 cents goes to the county. So we updated my interesting facts about Orono. So if you consider that there are 492 communities in the state of Maine, Orono is 91st in taxable value. So that is 91st in the amount of value that you have to draw your taxes from. We are 45th in tax assessment. That's the dollars that we commit to do the work. So that's the actual dollars. We are 19th in population, ninth in tax rate, and 49% of our property is tax exempt. So that just highlights what I'm trying to highlight there is that while we are pretty high in population and have full services related to that population, we have such a high level of tax exempt properties that we don't have the valuation behind it to be able to raise the taxes to provide services without having to have very high taxes. Ready to go on to WPCF?
Take a break and I'll just ask the public, or would you like to go all the way through? Okay. So why don't we take, if there's any public comment on the municipal capital budgets? Does anyone wish to say anything?
I'm Dan LaPointe, 201 Kelly Road. I'm retired. I'm pension, Social Security. Every dollar that you speak about here impacts me. You can look at my record for paying taxes. Every year is a struggle. I'm not happy with any increase whatsoever. I'm not so sure I understand every single thing that you presented, that Sophie presented on this budget. One of the things, the pie that she talked about, it doesn't seem proportional. And it's hard to say a school budget while we get taxed for it. You know, the separation of Orono from the RSU remains confusing to me, even at this point in stage in time. They send us a bill. We pay that bill. I think we have a duty to keep that as low as possible. Now, where does it go? Does it go to the students? Does it go to the teachers? Our poor teachers, out of their salary, must take into the classroom supplies.
Dan, we don't have any control over the school budget at this point.
I understand that, and that is an absolute crying shame. And the separation yet, again, is in my back pocket financially.
Mhm.
We find ourselves in a very troubling place. You know, the fundamentals of this country is representation, where they might come for meeting, but it's very self-serving. And their presentation is political science on steroids. And the problem is that the average person here cannot keep up with what's being presented. If you look at the RSU in Old Town, 34, beautiful forensic
Dan, I appreciate
accounting.
what you're saying, but we're talking about the town budget. We're not
Well,
talking
the town
about the.
budget takes this into consideration, and this is very serious. And this forensic accounting that's presented to the Old Town community is not presented here to this community. And I feel sort of betrayed in part. Now, I will speak in public comment, but when this budget has the greater portion, 57% of this pie, even though it's reduced down the way that it was reported earlier by the numbers, I haven't had a chance to crunch these numbers, haven't seen all this paperwork, but I am really unhappy. I struggle so very hard at 66 years old to pay the taxes in this community. You owe it to me and all the retired people in this community to reduce them, to let the elderly age in place. And I've had people, fixed incomes, just in just about tears, wondering how they're going to make ends meet with the heat and all the other challenges. You owe this to the community of Orono to do a very succinct and surgical job forensically and accounting. You can throw a lot of numbers around, but the bottom line is, what does that elderly person eat? What's the quality of life? You affect them. That's what I have to say on it. And I don't think for all of this and my attention to details, last winter was very hard
Mhm.
on me. I had some health issues, so I wasn't very much present. It bothers me very, very much that maybe you're not doing everything you could possibly do for our community, making it hard on the elderly and the young. In this budget, a lot of money here, folks. I think that there's some fat in here that needs to be looked at and maybe put on a frying pan so we could check it out, get rid of it, render it down, make it a little more leaner, because we don't know what's coming with teacher salaries and other challenges.
Okay, thank you, dear. Does anyone else wish to speak about the budget?
Stuart Dexter, 3 Fenwood Street. Speaking through this, it doesn't register with the hearing, so I'm not sure what was just said. But anyway, you knew I was going to say something about taxes. 47.10, the rate, 2710. It would be nice to see you reduce that 0.10 and make it a 27 flat. I also want to mention the last meeting we had, there was either 2 or 3 councilmen that mentioned possibly reducing the tax rate, which was an improvement that I've seen over the last 50 years. Generally, you see maybe 1 person on council, but there was 3. I'm pretty sure there was 3 that mentioned, which I thought was nice. Anyway, my big question is, and it's probably not fair to the town to ask this, but how much was uncollected on the last fiscal year's tax rate?
So at the end of FY18,
Yes.
we had $255,000 uncollected. So we had approximately 98% collection rate.
So there was 250,000 uncollected. Is that still uncollected?
So we have collected a lot of that. It will come, the lien process comes in, then we committed another $12 million of taxes, Stuart. So you've added another year into that mix. If you are asking me to ballpark right now, I think we're probably in the $400,000 that's not collected. I would expect a considerable amount to come in before year end because we've just sent out lien notices.
Now, and I know your procedure is governed by state rules or whatever, but this 250,000 was last year's tax rate. Now, how much from the year before that's uncollected? I shouldn't ask you that. I know
So
there's.
Stuart, you usually call me ahead of time, so I look smart when you ask these questions.
I thought of that, but the line was busy.
That's all right. I don't want to try to pull those numbers out. I can run you a tax report and get you that information.
What my point is, there is money from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. One of my big complaints is, probably shouldn't call names out, but the country club. I mean, when the new previous owner came in, he said he wasn't going to pay taxes for the first 2 years. It was the cost of doing business, and he'd pay. I don't think that's been paid yet.
So they have paid some. They are behind, but so their tax bill is approximately $70,000 a year, and they have.
This is the previous owner.
Oh, no, property tax from the previous owner has all been paid.
Okay.
It had to, in order to
Through
change
the
hands.
sale?
Yep.
Okay. And about how many years behind are they? Can,
2, counting this current fiscal year, so FY 18 and 19.
because I know in the town of Orono's booklet you sent out, there's 7 years that haven't been paid. So that was as of June 30, 2019. But anyway, I might have looked at it wrong too. But I guess what I'm getting at, I assume when you make out your budget, you're going to discount a certain amount of money that will be uncollected. No,
No, we don't do that because this is a secured debt, meaning the town's payment is secured with the lien process. So we book all of the revenue. We go through the collection process on real estate. We put liens on and then foreclose on property if people don't pay their taxes.
so anything that hasn't been paid, there will be paid at some point in the future. Okay, that's got my questions. I would though like to see that 10 cents added on to the property tax, zeroed out. That would be a feather in the cap. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully with revenue sharing going, if that goes where we want it to, that will happen. All right.
I'm Frederica Smith, and I live on Chestnut Court. I want to thank the council and the staff for all of the work that you've done on this budget. I've been at the budget hearings. I'm very impressed with the attention to detail, down quite literally to line items of $20 and that kind of thing. So there is no waste in this budget at all. I think the budget, as you have presented it, meets needs of the community and is also making a significant stab at dealing with some of the major infrastructure problems, particularly roads, which is one of the big line items in the budget. I'm sure there's always more that you'd like to be able to do, but at least we're beginning to tackle those problems. And I'm particularly impressed that you're not proposing an increase in the mill rate for the town portion of the budget. The only 10-cent increase comes from the county's portion, over which we have no control. But the fact that in the face of inflation, you can actually keep the mill rate level, which means you've decreased it relative to inflation. That's very impressive indeed. And I want to thank all of you for working so hard on that.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All right, we will move on to WPCF.
So as I indicated at the beginning of my presentation, WPCF operates as a separate proprietary fund. Its operation is funded through revenue that it derives from user fees, operation, and grants, not through the property tax. So this year we're asking for a total expense budget or authority to spend $1.87 million for our WPCF. $1 million of that is for operations. $581,000 of that is for debt service. $26,000 is for reserves, and $238,000 is for capital investment. That is up on the expense side $104,264, or 5.92% from last year. When we look just at the operating budget, which is $1.6 million, there's an increase of $25,000 or 2% on the operating side. That 2% is mostly seen in the labor market adjustment, as well as the increased electrical expense, which we already discussed. There is limited funding for capital reserves. Part of our intent in raising user fees is to be able to continue to increase what we put away in reserves. Sewer projects are very expensive, and it's important to keep up to date with the investments that you're putting in the ground. And as we discussed in the first public hearing, we would need 40 cents per 100 cubic feet increase in the user fee to fund this budget. Our capital budget is up $78,000, and it includes the purchase of a 4x4 pickup truck, which is replacing a 2008 two-wheel drive pickup truck. There is a plant-wide lighting upgrade, so moving to LEDs and creating some efficiencies with our electrical costs as far as lighting the plant and the outside of the plant. And some pretty major capital infrastructure. Joe is planning to piggyback work that Rob is doing on North Main Avenue with replacing some manholes. Also designing a sewer replacement for Westwood Drive, designing some sewer repair on Spencer Street, and Chapel Road has money programmed to replace 2 manholes and about 320 feet of sewer main. So a pretty full capital budget. The capital budget historically is funded from reserves. So we put money into reserves and then we take them out so that we keep a drawer for the operating budget fairly stable. So the budget maintains the current service level. We continue to make capital investments. I continue to be concerned about the limited capital reserve appropriation, but we're increasing it, which is good. And it proposes the increase in sewer use fees. And the chart from the beginning is now the chart at the end of the user fees.
Okay, does anybody wish to comment on or have questions about WPCF budget? Right, hearing none, I will close this public hearing and move on to public hearing D to accept comments on proposed FY 2020 fee schedule.
That is me. I
Okay,
apologize.
that's okay.
So the town of Orono Town Council adopts a fee schedule every year, and anything that we want to charge at the staff level, anything that we plan to charge out, comes to council for its consideration. State law says that a user fee has to have some relationship to the cost of providing a service. So one of the things you have to think about when we talk about changes to our fee schedule is, are we making a change that is related to the cost of doing business, if that makes any sense. So I thought I would just quickly run through what the changes are. On the fee schedule, we're actually proposing that we put the $50 per unit for rental registrations received after the deadline right on the fee schedule. It's in ordinance, but this would just make it cleaner. We're also adding some new fees at Public Works. Council adopted a mailbox policy earlier this year, and which provides for limited repair or replacement of mailboxes damaged by the plow in the winter. And we told you that Rob would do some investigation and come back to you with a cost for that. So he came back with $30 for a mailbox replacement and $30 for a post replacement. We've talked about the sewer use fees. The one fee that we did not discuss was the unmetered service fee, which has been consistently $86.20 26 cents per quarter. So these are for folks who don't get water through the water district. But are connected to the sewer. There aren't very many of them, just a very few. But as everybody else has had rate increases, these folks have not. So if I were to utilize the rate that we're going to, it would have been a very large hit to them, about $26. I instead used the same rate and took a smaller piece. So this is 95, goes from 86.26 to 95.06. The other place that you see on the fee schedule is the sewer connection fee. So when somebody connects to the sewer, they have to pay a fee, and it's because all of this work and investment has been made by everybody else to have the sewer available to them, so they have to pay a fee to connect it. And we have established that fee at the current sewer use fee times the design flow of their system. So that would go from $4.95 per 100 cubic feet or per gallon to $5.35 per gallon of design flow. We have some significant changes in solid waste landfill disposal fees, and I'm going to ask Rob if he wants to come up and explain how the system is going to change. If people are watching, this would be a good opportunity for people to understand what we are planning to change.
Good evening, Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director. So the change at the landfill is in the permitting process. We will be doing away with the single trip permits. So every time you want to go, you'd buy a pickup permit or a trailer permit, or which was a little difficult to manage for residents as well as staff. So it was kind of tough to figure out what kind of permit you needed. We'll be transitioning to a window sticker permit. So a resident would come in once a year and buy a window sticker permit. And then based on what they actually bring out to the landfill, they'll pay a per cubic yard fee. So that will be determined at the landfill. That'll help a little bit with kind of, there'll be no which permit do I need, blah, blah, blah. It'll be, I put 2 yards of material in a truck, I bring it to the landfill, I have my window sticker, I give the attendant 2 tickets for 2 cubic yards of material, and I can dump it at the landfill. Couple things that are, we've accepted leaves and brush at no charge, but we'll be also proposing to accept scrap metal at no charge. Right now, the market for scrap metal is okay. It's not exceptional. I've seen it far better than this, but it's still a revenue positive stream for us. So I thought this was a good opportunity to get the volume that residents bring in. If they know they can bring in metal at no charge, they'll probably be a little more diligent in sorting their materials at the landfill, so that we can save the volume in the landfill for what it's supposed to be, and keep the scrap metal out, and we have an opportunity to make a little bit of revenue on that at the same time. So that'll be a little bit of a different change. There'll also no longer be a free on charge. So the way it is right now, you would come in, if you had a refrigerator to dispose of at the landfill, you came in and bought 2 permits. You bought one for the trip, but then you also bought a free on permit. What we're proposing is to do away with the free on permit and simply accept the refrigerator with a 1 cubic yard ticket. So that means the resident only has to worry about getting the annual sticker and then having on hand however many cubic yard tickets they think they might need. And those can be bought in, lots of 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 if a resident wants to buy those. So it makes the planning and the angst of, I've got your Saturday afternoon trip and you forgot to get your permit. And look, if you have your tickets and your window sticker, you're all set to go. It makes the planning of your trips to the landfill on Wednesdays and Saturdays a little bit easier.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a residential permit and cubic yard fee and a commercial permit and cubic yard fee, and the philosophy behind why there's a difference?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this. The landfill really is there for the resident, to give them a convenient, reasonably priced place to dispose of construction debris or large mattresses, bulky things, furniture, things like that, without having to pay high disposal fees, having to have a contractor come and take them away. Gives the resident the option to do that. So you renovate your bathroom, you're going to do it yourself. You can save a little money on the residential side of things. What it's not intended for is a large commercial residential facility, let's say, decides to replace 150 mattresses, and you load those out and bring them out to the Orono landfill. That's really not the intent of what the landfill is there for, in what I think council has communicated to me in the past. So we've proposed that we charge more for the commercial annual fee and more per cubic yard to hopefully cut back on some of that type of the use and to really reserve the space in the landfill, because it is a finite amount of space for what it was intended for, and that is for the resident. And then the large commercial things, disposal needs can be taken care of by the people that are set up to do that, businesses and commercial disposal people, to handle large volumes, whole houses, that kind of stuff is really not what our construction debris landfill is intended for.
Anything else?
Yes, we're gonna keep going on.
Okay.
All right.
Real quick, do we know what the cost will be per cubic yard ticket?
It's proposed at $25 a yard for the residential and $50 for the commercial,
That
after
actually,
you've purchased a $25 annual permit.
that equates pretty closely to what people are paying now. Only now, if you have a pickup truck, you're paying for a pickup truck, even if you don't fill it all the way up. Now, you'll
Right,
go, there's a model out there that shows what a cubic yard is, and we'll make that based on that model.
Yeah, the other benefit to this process is it does kind of cut out the inequities that we've seen in the past, where one pickup load rounded over is the same price as a pickup load of somebody needs to get rid of just a few things, but they have a pickup, they pay for the pickup fee. And so there was always that kind of stress around the situation as well. But
And just quickly, so you have a small pickup is a 0.5 cubic yards, right?
Yep.
So could somebody make 2 trips and have it be 1 cubic?
all
Yard.
of that goes away.
Okay,
don't-
all that
They
stuff
can
goes
bring it in
away.
a covered wagon if they want. We're going to look at it.
Okay,
We're going to look at how much they bring in.
okay,
If it's a cubic yard, we're going to charge them for a cubic yard.
I would say, Cheryl, though, that we will, if anything comes in, it's going to be a cubic yard. We don't have any way to rip tickets. So,
Right.
like a ticket is, a minimum is a yard. So people will want to bring a yard in at a time if they're paying for it.
Or covered wagon.
So I'm going to
Rickshaw.
continue on with the fee schedule? Is that okay? Or okay. Thank you, Rob. So, under town clerk fees, we are looking to add in that the liquor license advertising fee is for the public hearing. Not changing what that fee is, but just clarifying what it's for. Color photocopies and oversized documents, we're adding that as its very own item for $1 a page. Taking out all of the reference to discs. We aren't really ever using them, so we should probably get them out. Taking out some of the circulator signature on candidate petitions and the notarization on non-candidate petitions, and that's just to mirror state law, is my understanding. Adding a cost for a business name recording to $10 per business. That's when they come in and register with the clerk's office, which they're required to do by state law. Just clarifying that vital records is for a genealogy search. We really don't care if it's direct lineage or not. And it would go from $5 to $10 per 10-year span, and that's simply to keep up with the cost of us doing that. And as we discussed with council, we wanted to increase our cemetery fees to better cover the costs of those services. What you will see is our full burials going from $300 to $400, cremation going from $100. These are weekday. Cremation going from $100 to $150. Cremation with a vault going from $150 to $200. Burials on Saturdays going from $450 to $550. Cremation on Saturday going from $150 to $250. And cremation with a vault on Saturday going from $200 to $300. And that would be the end of changes to the fee schedule. Proposed changes to the fee schedule.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to comment on the fee schedule?
I just want to, hi. I just want to clarify what I thought I heard because I'm getting old and sometimes I don't hear well. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, this fee schedule here. It sounds like that if Public Works knocks over my mailbox, I'm going to pay $30 to have it replaced. What is that fee for?
It's actually a reimbursement level.
Oh, okay.
The policy that council adopted earlier this year says that if we damage a mailbox and we can't, sometimes the guys are good at being able to fix them, sometimes they're not, we would pay up to $30. What we have learned, Judy, is that people are getting really fancy mailboxes out there, and some of the requests are much higher than what we can afford. So that is more about what we would reimburse. I will clarify that on the end of the fee schedule.
I think that would be nice because it sounds like I'm going to get charged for something, which I shouldn't be charged for. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dan LaPointe, 201 Kelly Road. A little concerned about the cemetery considerations. That the fee schedule changing. So, well, what about perpetual? The perpetual fee you pay for site on your cemetery lot, how does that tie into these new fee changes? I mean, the people that have already paid for certain things, that's pretty done. It's a done deal. So these changes, how does that reflect to the past?
So Dan, in Orono, they separate cemetery services, there is a fee that you pay to purchase a lot.
Yes.
And that is not changing. So right now you pay $450 for a 3-place lot, $900 for a 6-place lot, and $150 for an urn garden. We only sell lots with perpetual care. I know long ago you could make a decision, perpetual care or no perpetual care. We have to care for the cemetery, so now we just sell them all that way. There is a difference between purchasing the lot and then the service of actually turning someone into the lot. What is going up is the cost of the service of burying somebody.
All right. Do we currently have a sexton, folks? And who is that for the cemetery?
So by ordinance, we have a cemetery superintendent
Superintendent.
who functions as the sexton. The town manager gets to appoint that person. The public works director is responsible for the cemeteries, and
Public Works Director,
Mike.
is that now on Rob's shoulders?
he has from the very beginning by ordinance who's
Okay.
responsible for the cemeteries. Mike Smart, who is the foreman, is actually the appointed superintendent of the cemeteries.
Okay. These changes don't look exorbitant. I guess I don't understand when you purchase a lot and you have urns, families maybe will look to that in the future. I guess I have some, I don't want to take this meeting, but I need to have some understanding of what that means.
I guess I don't understand, Dan, and
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'll come back. I'll speak to you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Anyone else wish to speak about the fees? Hearing no one else, I will close public hearing D. Move on to public hearing E, to review the Orono Village Center District Development Program. And I would ask to waive the boundary reading.
Hi, good evening. Dave Mylan, the Director of Community Development. I'm here to give our town manager a little break, let her voice recover, and to give you a brief overview of the development plan for the development district. As you know, the community can invest in a particular geographical area, in this particular case, the Village Commercial District, by the use of a special assessment for that district. In 2000, as the third year, I think that the council has elected to recommended that that value be at $0.00 per thousand, and again, it's being proposed again this year. Those funds that are raised through the assessment is matched with other funds through the downtown TIF or from the general fund to be able to do projects excuse me, within the district. I just wanted to highlight three of them anyway, that to kind of give you a quick view of these. Some of them you've actually heard about several times tonight already, but I think it is important. The town will be undertaking a major repair of a portion of Mill Street, which was reconstructed last year, but was subsequently damaged by a broken water main. Reconstructing a portion of North Main Avenue, including redesign of its intersection with College Avenue to improve pedestrian safety, and improving lighting along the Main Street Bridge over the Stillwater River. Those projects will be funded through money allocated from the Downtown Transit-Oriented TIF district, Financing District. In addition, funding through the general fund design work will begin for a major Main Street sidewalk renovation project. Again, I think that's the third time that you've heard that tonight, which lets you know that Rob Yorkson and Joe Madigan get to do all that hard work, and then Sophie and I get to arm wrestle on which fund it's going to get paid from. Secondly, the town of Orono and the University of Maine, in conjunction with Orchard Trails, will continue to provide the free shuttle service in operation since August of 2009. So again, it's a very useful tool that we have for public transportation here in Orono. And then lastly, the focus for the Economic Development Office for the upcoming year will be to continue, excuse me, to fund and organize the Orono Summer Concert Series, the Winter Festival, and smaller themed events in collaboration with the University of Maine and the merchants in the downtown area. In addition, and probably equally as important to all that, the town this year will be developing and implementing a strategy to integrate businesses located throughout town with downtown merchants into a more complete and mutually beneficial organization. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Get your voice back?
I did. I just want to clarify that the free shuttle bus service is free for people to ride it, but costs approximately $95,000 a year that's funded out of the downtown and transit-oriented TIF district. I wish it was free.
Well, it's free to use, but that's where that money's come from, is from this plan.
Does anyone have any comments? Dan?
Certainly.
It was just meant, excuse me, Dan LaPointe, 201 Kelly Road. It was just mentioned that the downtown businesses, the entire community businesses would be somehow considered. I please, if you will, explain that statement, please, because as much as I like Orono, I like Western Orono. We live in a separate world. Okay? You're going to have to go a long way to convince me the value of this.
Well, I'm a unifier, so my job is to help unify West Orono with the rest of Orono. And that one of the things that I've heard from many times in the last 4 years is that there is a organized organization for businesses to be able to collaborate and work together in the downtown area, but those that are located on Stillwater Avenue or Outer Park Street or further down the south on Route 2, that they don't have the access to those same types of collaboration with the other businesses. So our intent this year will be to work towards bringing all of the businesses together to be able to work together, that'll to benefit all of them. The funds from this particular from the TIF district is an allowable use. The special assessment tax is at zero for the downtown area, so they're not paying any more tax or any less tax than everybody else. So this is a way to kind of bring everyone together. I hope that answers your question, Dan.
And I would just clarify that by bringing everyone together, it's on a voluntary basis.
Okay,
May I ask a question?
certainly.
Your operation of the district statement, section F, says the Orono Village Association was not active in 2018, 2019. And then the next sentence, Orono Village Association board members are drawn from merchants and residents with the University of Maine and the town each holding a position. The board will continue to evaluate the organization's goals and village needs in the coming year. So how, it wasn't active, so the board just carried over from the previous year?
Yeah, it's a good question. And what's happened is the Orono Village Association had a good run, and it was there were a lot of volunteers that were working to really help redevelop the village commercial district. As with a lot of groups, over time, other things become more important, and we were struggling to get people, downtown businesses, to be able to, to give up the time that needed to deal with organizational type things. So one of the things that the remaining members thought of as well is, if we open it up to other businesses throughout town, we'll get some new blood into it, some new ideas, some new energies in there. So we really see this as an opportunity to kind of reinvigorate the current ones by bringing in, other businesses that previously weren't eligible for the group.
And by not having a fee anymore, right?
Correct.
Then it doesn't separate out the people just say on the village commercial district from the rest of the town, because it used to be just the village commercial district. Is that true?
That's correct.
So they then have, originally they had bylaws that would describe how the board would be appointed, elected, and what their terms of service were.
Correct.
But now that you're changing who is the potential members of this business community, will the same board that's been not doing anything, are they going to be there, or you have to create a new board?
It's going to have to create a whole new association.
I used the word intentionally. It was to create a strategy.
Okay.
Was because the strategy would be to find a way to bring all of these partners and stakeholders together, and that there could be it could morph into something else in the future. But I'll take it step by step.
Okay, well, I think it's a great idea, and I'm impressed with the various things you do in economic development. We've got the pitch thing that happens here, and you've come up with suggestions on how people could advertise their businesses like in the Jumbotron. I mean, you've tried many things over the years of being our economic development person, and so I know that you know various business owners in the community. So I have great faith that you're going to come up with something. But when I read the one paragraph that said there's already a board, I was like, I'm just for clarification. There's really not a board, but you're trying to reinvigorate it with a new set of constituents that's greater than what was there before. But as Sophie said, voluntarily, you're not going to make everybody doesn't have to be in it.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify that as long as council continues to keep the village district as so we are keeping it as an active district, there will be a village association with board members, because that is what the district requires, and you're not going to add people from outside the district onto that board. So what Dave's talking about is allowing that to be kind of as dormant as the assessment is, and then adding a new entity that will work. The board is really important, because that board had input into how that extra 50 cents per thousand, so it was about $8,000 that got raised every year, was spent. So it's not going to disappear.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Things move slow. A lot of meetings. Village association. There are very many definitions. There are several TIFs, to my knowledge, within the community. There are several TIFs within the community. And the village association is in part defined by that. All is good and well to talk. Talk is not a bad thing. But, to consider me a tax stakeholder as by a TIF, not very nice. And I just don't hold too many of the visions that go on elsewhere within the community. And to think that I, have some extra dollars coming out of my pocket somehow, I'm not happy about. And now I remain open, but I do have questions on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, Dave. We will close public hearing E and move on to public hearing F, to the implementation assessments to be assessed against real and personal property for the municipal development district located in the downtown area known as the Village Center Tax District. Maximum rate of assessments to be extended in any 1 year can be up to 50 cents per $1,000 of assessed value as of April 1, 2019. The assessment proposed to be levied for a one-year program commencing on July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020 is $0 per $1,000 of assessed value.
So everything we just said, plus we are suggesting that we fund the majority of effort in the village district plan by the downtown and transit-oriented TIF district, which is part of your economic development budget.
And not assessing the tax. Correct. Is there anyone wishes to speak about the tax? That's zero. Which is at zero.
Dan LaPointe Orono, businesses do not vote. If that is a business in the town, downtown, and people don't live there, their impact, that's a great deal of concern. And, this representation for this, there's always has to be a vehicle. And maybe this is the village association, but somehow, many things happen that do affect the businesses within the community, and they remain silent because their ability to vote has impacted is a serious issue.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close public hearing F and move on to acknowledgement by council members. Terry, do you have anything?
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of in a sporty kind of mood right tonight. So first, I want to, I went to the Special Olympics this weekend at the university. My dear lifelong friend, her nephew was one of the participants. I want to say, Chief, your staff, they were amazing. Everybody spoke highly of them. It was really nice to see. Great community service there. I also want to remind everybody about a lot of the things that's happened in our community based on the athletic side of things, that the boys tennis team won Northern Maine. And the girls track team won states. And the boys baseball team is playing at Mansfield this Wednesday, I believe, at 6:30, I think. 6:30 for Northern Maine Championship. So if you get an opportunity to go out and watch them and support them, I think that our kids are doing an amazing job this year. So yes, actually he works for you, I think.
Well, you just stole my thunder. My son is on the boys tennis team, so I wanted to do a shout out for them and congratulations to them. And I don't think they've won anything since 2005. I think all the boys were like 3 and 4 the last time the Orono tennis team did such a great job. And I got to watch the match, so it was awesome. They did an awesome job.
I've two brief reminders of dates. Obviously, you've already heard there's an election tomorrow for the RSU budget and bond question in this chamber from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if you haven't already voted by absentee ballot, please come down and cast your vote. June 22nd is Hazardous Waste Collection Day. If you have computers and batteries and tires and all kinds of stuff like that, you can find more info about that on our town website, orono.org. But I want the bulk of my acknowledgments to go to Code Enforcement Officer Bill Murphy. We had a little update from Sophie last week that he earned an honorary certification from the State of Maine Code Enforcement Certification Program, and he's one of 10 code enforcement officers in the state to hold that distinction. So congratulations, Bill.
Tom?
We had the athletic teams of the high school recognized. I'd just like to recognize the graduating class of 2019. They had their graduation Sunday.
Yes, I went to the graduation.
You did.
I watched my sons walk across the stage and sing and play music, and it was a really wonderful group of teens. We're really lucky to have such a great school and wonderful community. Also, Cheryl had mentioned this in another previous town council meeting, but there is a fundraiser for the Martinez family that was burned out of their home on Harrison Avenue. It's on 21st of June. It's a fundraiser, spaghetti dinner. I think, where is it? Is it at the, oh, this is another one? There was one already? Oh, excuse me. All right.
It was delicious, by the way.
Oh, sorry. That was last month on the 20th. All right.
I'd like to echo the congratulations for the Special Olympics and the work that Josh and your team did to make that a really great event. Also, the high school graduation. I'd like to acknowledge Arts-a-Palooza is coming up this Saturday, the 15th. That's come see all the great stuff happening in Orono. The schedules, I think, are being passed around, so make sure you grab one of those and come on down and have a great time. Also, in a town like this, it's a lot of times it's the little things that really set us apart and make a difference. And Friday, I got kind of a panic call from a mother of a 5-year-old who was discovered that office closed at 2:00 and she needed to get keys for the Keith Anderson house. And so I just made a quick call to Sophie, and Sophie happened to be here, and she stuck around and changed her schedule a little bit, and Mitch came in to help out to make sure he got the keys. And because of that, young Thomas Crawley had a wonderful 5th birthday. What's that? We absolutely did, although the number of balloons popping gave us both several heart attacks. But it's the little things, and that I just want to hats off to both of you for doing just a little bit thing, maybe out of your way, but you made a huge difference, and I think that speaks volumes of the typical service that you get from this town. So thank you both very much, and happy birthday, Thomas.
And I would just like to acknowledge all of the town staff and what they did to put this budget together. I know it was painstaking process to go through with council, and we asking you why you're spending $20 on erasers, and you held in there. So I appreciate all of your efforts. We move on to unfinished business. We don't have any. Consent agenda. I'll take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I will take a vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving now to new business. Order 1993, order authorizing the creation of an assessing reevaluation project reserve funded through the assignment of $135,000 of unassigned fund balance, along with $40,000 carried forward from the FY 2019 assessing department budget, and further authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement with the Vision Government Solutions, Inc. of Hudson, Massachusetts, in an amount not to exceed $125,300 with funds drawn from the assessing revaluation project reserve. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
So Mike Noble's gonna grace you with his presence for the first time at an official council meeting. Be kind.
Mike Noble, assessor. This revaluation proposal is stemming from when I started back in January. I quickly realized that we're missing some information. Some of the records are incomplete, to put it lightly. The assessment ratio, which is how you track how the assessor is doing, was very good. It was in the high 90s, so there was no reason for concern. I mean, everything seems to be in good shape. Unfortunately, there's some missing parts that really need to be in place. It's a tall task to try to look at an entire community over a specified period of time as a single person. a project was initiated in-house to try and get out and measure and list the properties, as we call it, which is physically going to the properties, measuring the outside, going inside, looking at the fit and finish. So that project had started, and it was actually going well, and it's still proceeding. The major issue with doing these type of things in-house is time frame. And then there's a secondary issue of the people who are actually doing this work, measuring and listing, really need to be consistent. They need to be looking at all of these properties the same. I mean, all of us in this room could each look at a home and see different things and think different things. And with real estate, they have to be consistent. So we've had a number of listers working on these projects. I'm going to go back through the data, revisit properties as necessary that are done, and try to ensure that the data that we do have is consistent. Inconsistencies lead to the difference between an A grade and a B grade could be $50,000 on your assessment. So these are significant things that a slight little letter change can have a big impact on. In the meantime, I talked at length with Sophie and said, look, I may not be able to get this all by myself. So I put together an RFP, solicited some help for the commercial and multifamily side of the reassessment. As was summarized by the manager in her notes, we received 2 proposals. I met with both, discussed with both, checked references, and decided to opt for Vision. They were significantly cheaper, which lends itself to concern, but I talked with enough people that were using them and were content with them that I decided to give it a shot. Their bid was $125,000. The additional funds that are being requested are in case I'm not able to finish the rest of the residential properties. They have a set fee per parcel that they will finish those. We're currently at about 50%. Optimistically, if I can get to 75%, I think that's pretty good. So this money while it's a significant expenditure, it's easily a 10-year purchase. I mean, once you do something like this, at the short side, this is for 10 years. You wouldn't expect to see me back here inside of 10 years for this again. The other thing that I've noted is while our historical assessment ratios, which is again our scorecard from the state with regard to assessing, have been really good, the anticipated rate this year has dropped from 98 to 93. And I would also assume that the rate going forward may drop again based on sales that I'm seeing. So on one hand, that's bad. Your assessment ratio is dropping, means you're not assessing people enough. On the other hand, that leaves me optimistic that we'll capture enough value as part of this revaluation to help offset some of that cost. So I can't guarantee it, but based on the most recent market trends, that's the indication that I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So along with the reval, which Mike can do, I just wanted to take a moment to speak to the funding vehicle and the reason that this particular setup. I'm asking council to create a reserve because, as council will remember, it controls what comes out of a reserve. So if you put all the money into the reserve at this point, the only thing that you're appropriating out of it would be the $125,300 for the contract. Any other expense out of that reserve has to come back to council. So that was one thing. The second is when we start looking at a swing of $40,000, $50,000 that we're not sure if we're going to need or not, to go to the general fund taxes for that means that people would have to pay for it, and we're not exactly sure we're going to need it. So by assigning fund balance, anything that's left in that reserve at the end, council can sweep right back into the undesignated fund balance, which would be the intent. But it will give Mike what he needs to be able to continue this project forward with a goal of having these values done across the community for the FY21 tax bill, which is what is really important to us. We're getting concerned that as it takes, the longer it takes, the more stale the first view will be. And I didn't understand that until Mike took the time to explain it in very detailed terms to me.
I just had a couple of questions. So we're saying that we're hoping residents can see a new valuation of their property next spring? Maybe.
Some residents may see a new revaluation of their property this fall. There are some neighborhoods that I've visited. The Smiths who have left, I've actually seen all of Dirigo Pines, and I expect to adjust all of theirs for this year. Subsequent to that, everybody will see an adjustment for April 1 of 2020.
Okay.
So when I commit the taxes 1 year from this August, everybody will have a new value. These won't be surprises. They'll all be notified. There'll be hearings. This is all going to be a largely public affair. There's no secret meetings or everybody will get a notice saying this is going to be your new value. If you don't like it, these are times when you can come and meet with us and discuss it. We're looking at a lot of parcels. There will be issues. There will be possible, misclassifications, and these are all things that will be addressed long before the bills go out.
Okay. And my second question was, I've been doing a lot of work on when I do my real job, and I've worked with vision a little bit, and I'm concerned. Are you comfortable that will convert to Trio, or do we have systems in place? Because vision, from what I've seen, is a completely different format from what I would suspect are normal Trio towns. But
I wouldn't go so far as to say that Vision and Trio are like Apple and Android, but they certainly don't work together. What will happen is they've built the salesman had a really technical term for it, but it's nothing more than an export-import. They'll pull specifically numerical values from the Vision software and implant those into the Trio software for commitment and taxation purposes. So all of the work will be done within the Vision software, pluck the finished numbers from that software into Trio, and then carry on as business as usual from there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have there been other documented successful transitions between Vision and Trio?
Yeah.
Whenever we hear Trio and data, transfer, we kind of like,
Yeah.
So.
I think there are, I don't know the specific number, but there are at least a half dozen communities doing it right now. So they have Vision appraisal software and Trio collection software, and they're working. It's working.
Good. Thank you.
Sure.
anyone else have any questions on this? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Mike. I will take a vote on Order 1993. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to Order 1994. Order authorizing the town manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Maine State Library and Maine Infonet to allow the Orono Public Library to participate in the Maine Reciprocal Borrowing Pilot Program from September 1, 2019 through August 30th, 2020. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
All right. Lori or Sophie? Whichever one.
Lori Carpenter, Library Director. So we'd like to enter into this pilot program with the State Library. They're always looking for new and different ways for resource sharing. So what that would mean is for a year we would honor cards from other participating libraries, and in turn those libraries would honor cards from our citizens. So all over the state, if you're vacationing somewhere, Old Orchard Beach, or maybe having business in Augusta, you can go and use your Orono Public Library card in other libraries. Right now there are about 45 libraries that have signed on. So this will be a year to see how it works, and hopefully it works great, so all libraries in the state sign on. So it'll be a year of giving it a try. We can back out anytime we want if it's really not working for us. I don't anticipate that. I anticipate it will benefit our citizens, and we'll see some new faces in our library. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a great job. I think it's a wonderful program, and it's yet another example of how the state library is really knitting all of the municipal libraries together. We get amazing service from the state.
And there's no cost to it. Right?
There's no cost.
Question do digital books or ebooks enter into this at all? Can you use your if you're using an app, for example, can you put in your library card and check out books from other libraries?
That is a statewide program, so you can do it anyway.
Oh, well,
so
that's great.
you just have to have a library card from some municipal library that buys into it. So you can't get any more, but you can use it regardless. Yeah.
Can't get more than one app.
Well,
I think there's a limit of 3.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? No. Hearing none, I think I'll take a vote on Order 1994. All those in favor? Sounds like a great idea. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 1995, order authorizing the reallocation of $155,000 of funds raised and appropriated in the FY19 capital infrastructure from the Route 2 culvert project to the North Main Avenue project. Take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Rob.
Good evening, Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director. So I'm going to speak to this order and the one following it as well. And then you can ask me any questions you might have. So on June 3rd, on June 5th, we accepted bids for the North Main Avenue project that we've been working on for a couple years now. The low bid was Hughes Brothers for $664,355. That low bid, unfortunately, was about $110,000 over what we had budgeted for construction on that on this phase of the project. In looking at our capital plan, so we had a couple options. We could reduce the scope of the project, so essentially shorten the project, and make the project scope fit what our budget as bid would be. What that meant was essentially shortening the project from College Avenue through the intersection of Peters Street to College Avenue through the intersection of Pierce Street, essentially deferring a full block's worth of construction into next year, and then reevaluate how to find those funds in next year's budget. The other option we looked at is we looked at our capital investment plan for this year for funds that perhaps could be reallocated. In this current budget, there were $155,000 budgeted for a Route 2 culvert replacement project as a matching fund for a DOT project. For a number of reasons, logistically, with scheduling a few other projects in our region, that project has been delayed by the DOT 2 years, making the funds that we have allocated now not as urgent. So the proposal was to take the $155,000 that we had budgeted for the Route 2 culvert, reallocate those to the North Main Avenue project, fund that project as bid. So it would go from College Avenue through the intersection of Peters Street as intended, and then work in the next 2 fiscal years. That project's been delayed 2 years. Work in the next 2 fiscal years to restore those funds for the Route 2 culvert. So that will happen as it's currently scheduled now.
Great. Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. We discussed this in significant detail at a workshop. And Rob, I appreciate the fact that you brought us a number of options to consider. And this seemed to be the most logical resolution to the problem.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't feel like we were just pushing things off. We were actually getting something done. So
And I would say, to be clear, the bid, while high, higher than our estimate, was only $20,000 less than the next highest bid. So the bid wasn't crazy, wasn't erratic in any way. It's just probably a reflection of the current construction market. Something that the state's been seeing throughout the state, and national trends are leaning toward higher construction costs.
So, thank you. Dave mentioned that the pedestrian crosswalk at College and North Main is going to be somewhat changed in this project to make it safer for pedestrians. Who did the design on that project?
Oliver Associates did the design. The realignment of North Main Avenue and College Avenue came to us through when we did the downtown study. So this was a recommendation from the, can't remember, the Park Street or the downtown one. I believe it was the Park Street study. The current crosswalk is extremely long. There's no refuge in between. This will shorten the crosswalk, make it much safer. The realignment, so the long turn of North Main Avenue will be a little bit more perpendicular to College Avenue, calm traffic a little bit, but also increase sight lines. So big improvement on that.
Rob and Mitch have also worked with the beautification committee to move. The plan is to move the flower garden out of the center, so there's something there, and then so it will get replanted.
Yeah, so by realigning the intersection, it essentially creates two adjacent lanes. The island gets eliminated, therefore shortening the crosswalk and the intersection's entire width. The space that we're vacating with pavement and concrete, by moving the North Main Avenue intersection over, will actually become a planting area that's going to be about twice the size of the current island. And we're actually even including a water spigot in that garden for people who maintain those. From what I understand, they are happy with that.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will thank you very much, Rob. I'll take a vote on order 1995. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to order 1996, order authorizing the town manager to sign and execute an agreement with Hughes Brothers, Inc. of Hamden, Maine for the North Main Avenue infrastructure project in the amount of $644,355 with funds drawn from the FY19 Town Capital Infrastructure Budget and WPCF Sewer Replacement Reserve, and further to authorize the town manager to accept the alternate bid as negotiated between the contractor and Orono VZ Water District, OVWD, in an amount not to exceed $281,750, except funds totaling the contract price from the OVWD, and make payments to the contractor from these funds on behalf of the OVWD. I'll take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
You have anything else to add to that?
So I just want to clarify, because most of the time council does not see a complex order like this. So we discovered a while ago that when the town and water district are both working on the same project, it ultimately saves everybody a little bit of money and also gets us away from finger pointing if it's the same contractor laying the water main as putting in the town improvements. In order to make that work, it works best to have one contract. So the town would actually have a contract for the full price, which is the 644 and the up to 281. My understanding is that the water district might be negotiating a smaller scope of work. But we would sign the contract for the full project costs. You're authorizing me to take money from the district and put it into into an escrow and pay district expenses out for them.
So the only question I have on that is if they run into unanticipated problems and they have to do a change order or some way change the contract, the Orono Water District is still responsible for any increases associated with the work that they're having done. Is that correct?
It is. We're using the same engineer. So Mandy is the engineer for all three components. She does a fabulous job of keeping town, WPCF, and water district all separate. So if there's an issue, it would come through and we would not pay anything above and beyond what the water district's cost is.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments? Right, hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 1996. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to council committee representative reports. We didn't get to have this last month because we were observing religious holidays. And so now I'm going to start with Sam to catch up on community development.
Sure, thank you. We met on the 16th of May. We had a citizen's request in it proposing a resolution urging U.S. Congress to enact a revenue neutral fee on carbon fuels. We had much discussion about that, but what exactly are we doing at the end of that? But I remember we're really considering what the role is as far as the town to take a political stance on something like that. Although we are all in support of reducing carbon emission, all this great movement, we opted not to pursue that.
Actually, you opted to ask me to try to frame a different resolution, which we said I would get to as soon as the budget was done. And I think this is officially, for me, my budget work is complete. No, it's a resolution, but
Yep.
You asked me to kind of work with Ron and see if we could come up with something a little,
And we also addressed regulations for lunch wagons and food trucks and how they would be working in our community.
Tom, you ready on finance?
You saw me going for my nose.
If not, I could go down this way and come back.
Oh, that's okay. We have met and we're meeting again next week. The meeting that we previously had last month, all of those items been brought forward for council action. And we will have another meeting next Wednesday.
And we talked about the audit, and that
We
will
did.
come back on the 24th.
Correct.
I was scrambling as well because I forgot about May. Okay, but my committee didn't meet this month because of the budget process. So I don't have a June report for comp plan implementation because we were doing the budget. But we did meet last month on May 6th. We discussed several items, evaluating comp plan goals related to unruly gatherings and events requiring larger scale police presence. So in the aftermath of Main Day every year, or in anticipation of Main Day every year, it's pretty much an ongoing cycle that never ends. there are discussions about related things. So we are looking at whether our current approach with the unruly gathering ordinance is effective, and that perhaps it's not. So we're taking a closer look at that and thinking about a mass gathering ordinance. We discussed the review of a proposed update to the existing code of ordinances for fire prevention and protection, which is another ongoing discussion. We continued a discussion of short-term rentals, so we've realized there are some gaps in how we talk about things like Airbnbs and VRBOs and other short-term rentals, and so we're taking a closer look at that. And we made some minor amendments to the Vernal Pool Overlay District that were referred to the Planning Board. For the Orono Historical Society, which met last Wednesday at 1 p.m. at the Birch Street School, first Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m. They are not going to have a meeting in July, and a lot of the conversation was sort of gearing up planning for the fall events. There's going to be quite a few of events, some in conjunction with the library. There'll be the charity sale that normally happens every year. There was discussion of there's a PhD candidate who lives in Brewer who's trying to organize a regional kind of group for historical societies. Possibly if smaller communities or smaller societies get together in the region, then we could have more kind of ability to apply for grants and other things like that. So there was discussion about sending a representative to that on Orono's behalf. And also the Historical Society had to purchase more of the books that they sell about Orono because people are buying them. So if you don't have your history books about Orono with all those great pictures and stories in them, then feel free to visit one of our local businesses that carry them or contact the Historical Society for some copies.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to a future agenda items of concern. Terry, do you have any?
No.
Cheryl? No. Megan?
I do for a change. I almost never do. But it's very brief. It's not really a concern or an agenda. Well, I guess I'm a little concerned. So we received flyers from Coastal Resources recently in our mailboxes, which was wonderful because they very carefully described some of the changes that residents are going to see to the recycling program in town. So it's good to know all of these changes, and I'm very glad for these flyers. One thing that seemed conspicuously absent to me was any discussion on these flyers of the level of cleanliness that some of these recyclable objects must now have in order to not be considered trash. Because if enough of the tonnage is not clean enough by their standards, then we would be paying trash rates for it instead of recycling rates, which is significantly more. It's in their best interest not to mention that to us, but I'm highlighting that because the town is going to be kind of getting into a campaign to raise awareness about these changes to the recycling program. So I just wanted to throw it out there so that we can be anticipating those educational moments in the future.
Ask a question just for clarification. Great. I'm glad you mentioned it. Are you looking for this to be a council discussion or for staff to hear your concern and make sure that we educate and get this out through social media and other?
Oh, I think that it can just be something that goes out through social media. I don't think it needs to be a council discussion. I just wanted to bring awareness to your staff's efforts that they're going to be undertaking.
So it's an item of concern, not a future agenda item. Got it.
Tom, do you have anything? Laurie? Sam?
I'm all set.
All right. Public petitions? I don't think we have any. Public comments?
Dan LaPointe, 201 Kelly Road. I'm sure I'll have a petition for you folks once I look at some things and figure that out. Public comments. First, Rob, maybe is the fellow to speak to, I'm not sure. My mother on the corner of Kelly Road and Stillwater, because of foliage from plants growing, got tagged with a dump truck. And she had a great challenge to her left arm that she carried into her dotage and through her life. Today, I saw that corner up. I grabbed my weed whacker and I knocked it down. But there are some culverts about the street, drainage ditches, that actually have trees growing up in them. Like that to be looked at, you know, I mean, in the process of people passing through. I mean, I could go over with my truck and take a chain, but it might upset some people throwing some rocks around as I pull the tree out by its roots. Drainage ditches, this is old. This is so old that probably the only person that might remember it is Mr. Perry. And no offense, sir. 1815 is a lot, and it has quite a bit of road frontage on Stillwater. It tends to be some moisture is gathered because the old ditching that used to go down over the hill was considerable, and I mean by considerable, it was quite deep. That, through the years of use and trucks waiting for the interstate, I mean, this is how far back it goes. They filled in the sand pit in front of Bob Perkins's lot over there, and that completely blocks the natural drainage, which was enhanced for many, many, many years. Now, this is so old, you'd have to go back. I can point it out to somebody if they wish. That might be nice to bring that back. I'm a little bit concerned on, you know, you got so much work to do. Everybody wants to go home. They don't want to listen to me. I can't blame you. But, you know, the idea that you're going to weigh in on carbon fuels or take a political stance, climate change, climate warming, I'm sorry, global warming, oh no, that's gone, that's climate change now, right? I mean, maybe it's more colder than it was before. You know, this is weird stuff, folks. I think it exceeds your mandate. You've done a wonderful budgetary thing, thank you, but keep your noses out of this and your time. It doesn't belong there. I don't want to see any declaration of war or not war or any of that stuff, because guess what? Unless you want to form a militia, and then I volunteer to assist you under the assessor's department. But somehow maybe that falls on ears that don't want to hear that. I really think a corps of engineers in the community would be fabulous, and that's how to do that. It would really revive a lot. There was one other thing that I needed to mention. Oh, yes, on my upset, my campaign, if you will, my beautiful signs have been beat up nasty about the community. I'm not happy with that. Some moved around, some changed. I mean, you know, my great concern is that Mount Blue in, where is it, Farmington? It has a varsity, it has a JV field, it has a big monumental thing that's a quasi-governmental fortress. I mean, it looks like a campus. For the amount of students we have here, the current budget, which we're looking at on this RSU 26, not reported to us cleanly and nicely as RSU 34 does to its people in the newspaper. Beautiful article, Penobscot Times recently. I mean, forensic accounting that even I, my limited knowledge with a calculator, can figure things out. This was presented to our RSU, and you can all say, oh, we wash our hands of it, but guess what? We pay for it. And I contest that the 57%, I know probably we'll have a discussion, Sophie, of that pie in the community going to the RSU 26. So much money is there. We have on the horizon teacher salaries that we must deal with. These poor teachers right now have out of their pocket, they take classroom supplies, they're never compensated. We don't need to build a fortress. If we want an amphitheater, it should be commercial. It should not be quasi-governmental where we don't have much say about it. The issue is that's rising here is the 6-year void of for a balloon payment. That's a big issue. The reverse question, yes means no, no means yes.
Dan, I appreciate your comments, but this all has to do with the RSU, and we don't have any.
Oh, I understand. Oh gosh, excuse me, corporate. Oh, my hands are clean. I don't have, not my job. Well, guess what? It was your job.
It was, but it isn't right now,
The
sir.
defunct issue of this is that I really feel what they're bringing forward for their maintenance on what was ours is not right. It's not bought, not
I
paid
understand
for,
your comments,
confiscated.
but we can't make
I
any
understand
changes
the
on that.
difficulty, but this not my job stuff doesn't work very, very well when my taxes come out of my pocket because it lacks oversight on serious oversight on this and no teeth to deal with this. Now, this issue is reactive, just like teachers' wages, which are on the horizon.
And I'd ask you to sit down now, please.
Oh, that's okay. I can understand that. I've had that said very many times. But the issue is at this point in time, failure on several levels. And my God,
Dan,
that I pay the taxes this year and you don't
I
take
understand,
mine home.
Dan, but we cannot do anything about the RSU. So thank you. Yes.
If I could just speak to the thing that we can do, that we also can't do anything about. Your concern about drainage, ditching on Stillwater, that is outside the urban compact on a state road. So what we can do for you, Dan, is pass along your concern to DOT, but that is not a body of work that the town is responsible for, and we don't carry funding to be able to manage DOT maintenance. So we will pass along your concern, but I wouldn't expect to see a Public Works truck out there in the near future.
That corner has poor visibility. And I think, our loved ones need that visibility. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Judy.
Probably should have asked this earlier under the budget. The undesignated fund. Could you please tell me if not to penny, but what is the current balance?
2.6 million.
Okay, which is pretty good. It's gone down quite a bit as I understand it, for example, this year we're taking around 400,000 out. But isn't there a mechanism where if there's a possibility that some gets fed back into that or not? If, like, for example, it's a carry over money or something like that, can money go back into that somehow?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
So our entire fund balance, so all the different classifications of fund balance, is about $7.4 million. It's down almost $600,000 total. A lot of that came from assigned fund balance use. Our undesignated fund balance is actually up a little bit.
Sounds like it a little bit. Yeah.
Still down from where it used to be. And we're at a point where, based on council policies, the use could be of undesignated could be between $325,000 and $1 million. So that's a pretty wide swing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be coming back to to council at the next finance committee meeting, now that we've had a chance to really look over the audit, to talk about the assignment of some funds, reassignment of some funds. So it's kind of in flux right now, Judy, but it is, we're definitely, we were at $10 million of fund balance when I got here. We're at 7.4.
And you know my concern, which is, eventually, because I'm grateful and I'm very proud of you folks for no increase. But one of the realities is that came about by at least $400,000 coming out of that fund. And I was on for 9 years, and I think 9 years in a row, we were taking money out. So it's just some point in time, it might be a concern. I was just wondering. And secondly, you're gonna like this one, and I'm sorry to do it to you. First of all, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I didn't come tonight because of the town budget. I came tonight because I tried to find out on the internet what the school's budget was, and I couldn't find it. I went through a number of different places looking for it, and there was a meeting that was there, and it was listed, but you couldn't click on it, and it was not live. So there was no information for me to find out what the budget was. So then I went under the town and thought, well, maybe, we're going to be voted on this. Maybe it'll be listed there on the ballot for what the school budget is. And it's not. What's listed is, and I think I know why, but please explain it to me and to others who might be curious about this. The way that that's worded is that I'm voting to approve or not, A or nay, the budget that was approved in the meeting that was held in May. There is no dollar amount attached. And that kind of bothers me. I think I know why, but I would like to have it explained to me. Maybe I don't know why.
So there is a bit of a timing issue.
That's what I figured.
With the ballots have to be printed. So when you do the full budget process, that budget meeting was right on the heels of the ballot being available for absentee balloting. The town has made a choice, did long before I came on board, to take that role of running an election very seriously and not making up. We're not allowed, as the holder of the election, we can't make up additional information or provide additional information for the ballot. So when you vote, whether it is tomorrow or was absentee, there are spreadsheets that the school provided that are in the
that's what I wanted to hear.
when you can see it right from here. I'm looking at it.
Good.
So there is information there, but the problem is that anything could have happened at that budget meeting, and had they given us numbers to print their ballot, they could have been wrong, in which case it would have caused a real hardship.
And again, I'm sure the town probably doesn't have anything to say about it, but does anybody know, is that the timing of those events, can that ever be changed so that is a figure that people have to read when they're looking to vote for something?
So my understanding, and I don't know if somebody can provide better information, but my understanding is that the school gets its budgeting information in February, March-ish. They build their budget. They're actually done with their review right before the meeting. I think the piece that has thrown the wrinkle in is when absentee balloting went back 30 days. I think that's where the wrinkle has come. I can't change the absentee balloting that's coming out of state law. That might be something that you might want to bring up with the school board as a concern.
It just seems nice, and to come here tonight, because I figured I would find the information here in the form that I did, which I was pleased to see, because again, there's a whole different perspective when you see that the operating budget is the same. Now, I'm assuming that they, like the town, got more money from the state, so that really expenses did go up, just not showing up in terms of a tax increase this year, which is great. I mean, I'm sure there were some just like you folks did, some wrangling to even make that happen, even with the increase. But I think, I just was disheartened not to be able to find the information. Number one, I'm going to talk to the people at the school to make sure that they, in the future, because I should have found that.
If I may interject, I just did a quick Google search
Yep.
for RSU 26 budget 2019
Yep.
Maine, and in 2 seconds it came up with a link, and it's been there since May 14th.
But go to the link. The one that I went to gave me a list of budget of meetings that were held. It shows the May 14th budget. And where did you find that? That's what I did. I typed in RSU 26 budget. I did not find that.
I put Maine in 2019. I don't mean to do any technological wheelies here, but
No, but I would like to have found it, Sam.
It was a link, and I clicked it.
I did too.
So,
Bring me
I
to a
clicked the
budget.
right link. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe after when we're done, maybe you
just
can
because
show me what you
the
did.
meeting's getting a tad bit long, Sam,
sorry
maybe you
about
could
that, but
show
yeah.
In
Judy
fact,
where
I
it
will
is.
email this link to you. All right.
No, no, it's okay. If we take a minute, you just tell me where you found it after the meeting.
I'll show.
Because I was just concerned about that. Because to me, it was frustrating. So like I said, I came because I knew I would have the information on paper. Again, I'm assuming that everybody's in the same boat, though, that everything is, I mean, you've taken a very conservative stance by going with the governor's proposal. But that, again, is not final until end of June?
So I
Hopefully.
know they were working on the budget today. I got text from our Representative Tipping, asking me questions. I would expect they try very hard to get their budget approved before the end of the year. Talking with council, I think the plan is on the 17th to kind of firm up where our budget adoption will be, with hopefully some direction as to what we would do with additional funds at that point.
If they were so fortunate. It could go the other way, possibly.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to think about that.
No, neither do I. Okay,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, staff, for hanging in there. I will take them. No, I won't.
I have just 3 quick things. First, to remind people that we're meeting next Monday, the 17th at 6 o'clock here. To also remind folks that next week on June 20th at 6 o'clock, we're having the council is holding a public meeting about marijuana regulations. June 20th at 6 p.m., Thursday, June 20th. We're taking over the community development meeting for you guys to host that meeting. And finally, I want to just thank everybody for sitting through my very long presentation about the budget. I just don't know what to cut out of it. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't acknowledge the incredible work that the management team has done. The fact that council can spend its time really focusing on dollars and cents as opposed to the quality of the work that is being done is a testament to how much effort goes into managing these departments and the incredible professionalism and skill set that we have working for us. So I'm very proud of them.
Thank you, Sophie. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. And second.
All those in favor? We are adjourned and there is nothing to sign, so you are released.